Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm back joined today with my trusty co-host, Captain Patrick Garmis with Ugly Fishing. How we doing today, buddy?
Oh, Bush, I'm doing fantastic. Just been fishing a lot. Weather's been decent. Man, can't complain.
I bet it was nice on the water today. I bet it was slick. I was jealous. Dude, you said you were fishing this morning.
It was nice. Had a group from Connecticut. They wanted to get a couple kids out on the water. We went out and targeted redfish. You know, the thing I like about targeting redfish with kids is a lot of times you don't have to make these really super long casts and try to get way away from the boat.
Yeah.
You can get out of having all this super stealth mode and all this stuff in the works. And when you catch even a 16-incher, he'll pull a little bit of drag. And
they're going to fight for sure.
Yeah, kids have fun. And so then when you catch a 24, 25-inch redfish and it pulls them all around the boat a couple times, it's a lot of fun.
I bet.
You know, and they remember a 24, 25-inch redfish for sure.
Got them hooked. Got to get them hooked at a young age.
Yep. And I had one kid, man, he was literally sitting there holding his line in the water as I was moving the boat forward, and a redfish came up and grabbed it right. I mean, literally, shrimp was hanging in the water beside the boat. So
that's awesome. My kid will be talking about that for years.
Oh yeah, it was a blast.
I like the saying, what is it? Get your kid hooked on fishing. He'll never have any money to getting into trouble. It's about right.
There's a lot of truth to that for sure.
Absolutely, man. All right. Well, this week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to us by the Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Are you looking for an enjoyable night out and want to see all of that money spent on conservation efforts within Alabama? Check out the CCA's 20th annual Lower Alabama Chapter Beach Party. This event will be held on April 26, 2019 at the Wharf in Orange Beach, Alabama. It starts at 6 p.m. and there will be a live auction, silent auction, a raffle, dinner by Villaggio, and live music by Wes Loper. Pre-sale tickets are discounted to $110 per couple and $75 for a single. Each includes a one-year CCA membership, dinner, and drinks. Tickets will be available starting March 15th, so they're available now at ccaalabama.org. Should be a fun event.
Man, I really enjoy those CCA events. I mean, it's a good excuse for me and the wife to have a little date night. And also, you know, we're knocking out two birds with one stone. We get the date night, we get some good food, get some drinks, get some entertainment, get to talk fishing and be around a bunch of people that are interested in fishing. I can't speak this about every CCA chapter, but our chapters around here are really putting a lot of money back into these reef programs and stuff. So if you enjoy being out there fishing and catching fish on these reefs, man, you got to support the CCA Alabama and get some of that money coming back into what you enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's a pretty cheap date night too. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Not bad at all. All right, man. You guys had a ACFA meeting last week. Were you able to make it? And then we talked to Mr. The Pier.
Yeah, I made it out there. We had Bobby Abrascato was our speaker, and they threw him a curveball. They asked him. They said, "Hey, we want to know a little bit more about your deep water fishing and structure fishing and stuff like that." So he went into the details of the slip corking and Carolina rigging and split shot fishing, and you just fishing a lot of the deeper water stuff. And it's a little bit early to have that discussion, in my opinion. But it was there's a pile of good information. I mean, if you go there and listen to Bobby, and he had his diagrams on the big screen and stuff. He said it was out of his element to not have his little flip chart that he used to use. And, but anyway, it was a good seminar. We had a big crowd. It's certainly worth attending if you're interested in inshore fishing. Go there at least once, check it out. But more than likely, you're gonna sign up and want to be involved moving forward.
Yeah, I did. I went my first one last year, maybe a little earlier than this, and I did. I signed up after my first meeting. It was a good group of guys and people that want to share knowledge, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is.
There's another meeting on May 2nd?
Yeah, May 2nd, and
Moe's downtown.
Then the third tournament of the year will be that May 4th, and that'll be a speckled trout only tournament. Whenever I was in the club, whenever I was president and vice president, we used to have these competitions amongst the other fishing clubs, and the other fishing clubs haven't survived the years. And so then we started doing kind of an internal speckled trout challenge amongst the older folks and the younger folks. Called it the Old Salts Young Guns Tournament.
I like that.
I think that's what they're still doing. But anyway, I'll still be representing the young guns. Hopefully, I'll have to take a look at my schedule, see if I'm off, and if I am, I'll be helping, trying to bring the
title home. Yeah,
bring the title to the young guns. The old guys have been beating us year after year. It's been about 2 or 3 years since the young guns have brought home a win.
Well, maybe this year will be the
time.
Yeah, definitely time. All right, man. Well, let's get into this thing. Let's head on down to get our first report. We're going to head on down to Orange Beach, Alabama, and see what Angelo Depaola's got on the offshore side.
What's up, Angelo? So what's going on down there around Orange Beach?
Man, you can see everybody putting the riggers on their boat. If they hadn't been fishing yet, they're getting ready to go. We have like an 80-degree day here today in the Gulf Coast.
It's hot.
So it's hot. And Patrick, like you were saying earlier, water temperatures are going up. This warm weather's just kind of kicking off the spring pattern. It's kind of really just now happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what are some things? What are y'all seeing down there this week, and what do you think coming up?
We talked about the fishing report last week, and obviously we've had pretty bad weather as far as fishing goes, either rain and wind or rain and wind, whatnot. So there's not been a lot of good windows to go off of. Buddies of mine were out there. They went and fished Nakika, Thunderhorse, Thunderhawk, all that stuff in that area. Put together a nice box of fish. I mean, they had about 10, 12 yellowfins. They weren't monsters, 30, 40 pounders. Had a nice 20-plus pound dolphin. Did some deep dropping on the way in. Caught some nice tilefish. Had a big old nice Warsaw. A nice mixed bag of fish for an overnight trip, and just kind of picked away and grinded away at the fish. Caught everything on the chunk. Caught some at night. Caught some during the day. And that just got me thinking, about how people should be fishing this time of year, and how do you put together a nice box of fish when they ain't exactly jumping in the boat.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of weeks ago, Patrick Ivey was talking about, right now a good spring pattern is just to go find the bait, whether it be on top or on the bottom machine, and just camp out on it. Did that tie in with your guys that were fishing? Yeah,
exactly what happened. Found a rig, had some bait, marked some fish, and just stayed with it. And then they turned on and they started catching them. And then, lo and behold, they're sitting there chunking. Dolphin swims up in the chunk line. They got a spinning rod ready. Flip it a bait, put that in the boat. And, they kind of quit fishing earlier that morning when the bite kind of shut off. And then started packing it in and heading up the hill, and kind of stopped off at some rocks along the way and caught a few bottom fish. So about 8 guys on the boat. They had a nice load of fish for everybody to take home.
Sounds like with that many yellowfin, a big dolphin, and some tilefish and some grouper, I would say they got a pretty good freezer full.
That's a nice trip.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Angelo, I want you to go back and talk about the spinning rod that they had set up. Give us some details on, maybe what they had set up, and what allowed them to be able to capitalize on that dolphin, and maybe a couple other tips of maybe some rigging to have ready whenever you leave the dock, to be ready for kind of at a moment's notice for some of those arrivals around the boat like that.
So Patrick, I'm not sure if your wife's like this, but my wife is like this. Like, I have tons of rods and reels. I've got a rod and reel for every situation. She's like, she doesn't understand why I have it. Well, the reason I have it is because this time, well, really any time of year, I think kind of leads right into our tip of the week, is that you have to be ready for those situations. Those little abilities to capitalize on a hand you're dealt are the difference between a good trip and a bad trip, or a good trip and a great trip. So they had a spinning rod with a little circle hook on it, just in case something did come swimming up the chum line. They had a spinning rod with a popper on it. This time of year, we're going to start seeing the flying fish move in as this water temperature picks up. So when you have that, you're going to start seeing tunas and stuff blowing up on those at night. Well, sometimes those fish are there for an instant and gone and gone just as quick. If you're able to capitalize 1-2 fish, usually makes the trip. They had some electric reels on the boat. They were able to come in and deep trot for a little while, put a few more good fish in the box. I mean, when I looked at their box, if you took away 2-3 tunas, took away their bottom fish, took away the dolphin, it would have really been a kind of a mediocre trip. Mm-hmm. But when you loaded it all up into two those big giant black wheelbarrows, you're like, dang, you guys had a really good trip.
Yep. This time of year, man, that's what it's all about. It's grinding. You got to grind it out.
Grinding. Mm-hmm. Have everything ready. Like, I always like, even if I'm tuna fishing and I'm not like out there trying to catch a blue marlin, well, periodically while you're out there tuna fishing, boom, one just shows up behind your boat. Don't let that be the opportunity that you got to go crimp on a hook and
right. You got to be ready.
Dig through your tackle. Got to be ready. Be ready. And then, the difference in a trip of a lifetime and just another everyday trip is your preparedness. And so I think if you're prepared to take advantage of the hand you're dealt, you quite often put a great trip together. I mean, I don't know. I could go on for days on stories that big fish shows up behind the boat and we end up catching it or we don't. And I don't know. I don't remember any of the ones we don't, but I damn sure remember the ones that we did.
That's a fact.
Those are the good stories, though. So I've never caught a blue marlin. I don't do any of the offshore stuff. Give me just a quick rundown of what the emergency blue marlin rig looks like.
For me, I like an 18-0, 20-0 eagle claw circle hook. I like it snelled where the hook bends back towards into your leader. So you're coming in from the front eye of the hook and going to the back, and that's going to cause the hook to bend back towards your leader. And already go ahead and have a piece of floss on there and either a dart to dart your bait or the needle just to rig it up real quick. I mean, sometimes you don't even, or just have the hook ready. I mean, sometimes when they show up behind your boat, they're all lit up because they're chasing something else. It don't take that much. Sometimes they'll just come up and eat a dead bait, right behind your boat.
Oh, so, yeah. If he's back there free swimming, I'm not going to take time to bridle one. I'm going to hook him through the nose and wish him good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, here you go, buddy.
That's right.
Hasta la vista. Nice knowing you.
Here's lunch.
Very, very cool.
You got a listing of the week or what you got going on over there on your real estate page?
Man, we do. We're putting it in the system right now. We were talking before we got on the air, and I said, if the weather was like it is right now, our real estate values would probably be double what they are. I mean, just low humidity, nice sunny day out here today. Brand new listing, 2-2 condo at Walker Key. Tons of people from Mobile and Baldwin County all own second homes over there. It's one of those places that actually has a really good, a cool vibe and a community feel to it. It comes with a deeded boat slip, 2 pools, 2 covered parking spaces. $335 is what we're going to list it for. It should sell quick, completely furnished. Anybody can go to my Facebook page, Angelo Depaola Realtor, and pull it up and take a look at what we got. Probably have the pictures up on it tomorrow.
Awesome.
So,
nice.
Great deal, great property. Somebody's going to get a good deal on it.
Sweet, man. It's that time of year. Got to get your summer digs figured out for sure.
It is. I mean, it is that time of year. And shoot, from there, it's a straight shot out the pass.
For sure.
So it's a pretty sweet spot. Right
Nice.
Across the street from Sam's Bait and Tackle. Go get you a biscuit in the morning.
That's right. All right, Angelo, as always, man, we appreciate you giving us the offshore report, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Guys, I appreciate it. I enjoyed being a part of the show, and y'all have a great day.
See you, Angelo.
All right, later.
All right, Captain Patrick. I like to hear those offshore reports. I like the dolphin. I'm getting pretty fired up about those.
I've caught a couple of chickens, but I've never caught any big bulls or big cows or anything like that.
Yeah, man, it's crazy when they get on like that. I got a video that I'll send you. We got on a big old grass patch, and man, there's just thousands of them in the water from one of our offshore trips not too long ago. Man, I heard little birdie told me that you caught a pretty nice fish a couple weeks ago. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. Got the pending state record sheep's head, and it was just a cool situation. I had a guy that used to work with my wife. He chartered me he wanted to go out. He told me this was the criteria for the fish trip, was that he wanted a big fish to take a picture with. I was like, well, there should be some nice sheephead on the rig still.
Yeah.
And it's a very good chance that we come across some bull reds, either on the way out or on the way back. And we headed out, did not see any redfish, went sheephead fishing, and landed that big beast. He was hooked up, ended up catching one whenever I hooked up. And anyway, it was a pretty special moment, man. He was as thrilled or more thrilled than I was. Like, I was excited, but it was almost like
I'm sure it was kind of surreal.
Like a real surreal moment, man.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there looking at this fish. I put it on the digital scale, and it was bouncing from like 13 pounds, 6 ounces was the lowest it went, and the highest it went was like 14.3, being on a bumpy boat. And I was like, that's the friggin' state. If this scale is accurate,
right.
I am holding the state record sheephead.
Man, that's awesome, dude. That's exciting.
Yep.
Well, we'll stay tuned. I think you're doing an article in Great Days Outdoors. Are we getting the full exclusive on that?
Yeah. Joe and I have to. We're going to get together here pretty quick and put it all together.
Awesome, man. Can't wait to hear about that. All right, Patrick, let's head on down to probably your favorite segment of the show. Let's see what the inshore is going on. We'll see what Captain Bobby Abrascato has been doing. What you say, Captain Bobby?
Hey, guys. How y'all doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, it is, man. I'm telling you, it was a beautiful day, man, from well before daybreak to well into the trip. And, I think we're going to get through the part of the weekend anyway with some decent weather. But, the good news is the water's pretty. And I don't think, hopefully we're not going to get enough more rain upstate to screw anything up in the bay. But the point, everything down south is still going to stay pretty regardless of what happens over the next couple of days, weather-wise.
What you been up to? What's been hot?
Well, I'll tell you, man, I'm kind of, fortunately the fishing's gotten good enough to where I can kind of play the weather. And we had a phenomenal trip today, really, really good trip today. And some of the areas that I've been catching fish, prior to the weekend. But the fun thing about it today was the fish were really starting to gather up and school better. And as Patrick will tell you, man, that makes our job a lot easier because you find the fish and you can really catch a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
Before there was like, a stop was a 2 or 3 fish stop or something like this. But now it's getting to be more like like today we had several 12 and 15 fish stops, making some really long drifts, and so that's been the fun part. And getting back to the wind direction, fortunately there's fish, most of the way up the bay. And then when the weather's right, there's a lot of redfish out at the mouth of the bay. And even if the wind blows hard, there's still trout in the rivers. And then if you get around to the sound, when you start getting some of the north and easterly direction winds, there's fish down there. So it's good enough right now that, kind of depending on what the weather does, you can fish an area or kind of fish a pattern and still have a really good day.
Bobby, I've been to your seminars and you and I have been friends for a while, and you've always talked a lot about utilizing that wind to your advantage. And I find myself doing that more and more, to where not necessarily getting out of the wind, but just using it to help you cover water. And I'm so used to it now, to where if I get in a situation where the wind's not blowing a little bit, I'm almost kind of like looking around, waiting on a breeze to start helping move the boat. You feel the same way on that?
Exactly, man. That's exactly right. We left this morning, or I was waiting on the charter to show up this morning, and the wind, it was mirror slick. I was like, oh gosh, man, what I want to do is not going to really work well with no wind. So it's gotten to the point now, just exactly, man, you laid it out exactly right. I want some wind. Now I want some, within reason. But even when you get it, and you really, this time of year, if you're going to fish in the spring, you better count on it being windy. You know what I'm saying? So you better learn how to deal with it. And that's one of the things I've done is over the years, instead of saying, oh, it's too windy to fish, you got to go out there and fish in it. If you're going to fish in it, you got to figure out how to use it to your advantage. And that's what I've done. And so it's funny you say that. I want some wind. Double digit wind doesn't scare me a bit, and you play it right. You really have to look at the geography of the area that you're planning on fishing, or sometimes where the wind tells you you're going to have to fish. And again, to my point, what I was mentioning before is, we've gotten to the point this spring to where there's enough fish to where you can look at wind directions and plan your day and still go out and have a great trip.
Did you guys see any changes with all that fresh water, with all the rain we had over the weekend and into last week?
Not really. I think there's a rise, and I think we're going to start to see some water coming down the bay. The rains we get locally screw up the local rivers just for a couple days, but we're on such a big tide cycle right now to where it doesn't take long at all for even the local rivers to clear up, and those drain out into the bay, and our bay flushes really well, so there's always plenty of clear water. So the local stuff doesn't really screw it up. It's really the volume of rain that comes down through the delta that screws up the center part of the bay.
Sure.
And from what I've seen so far, it's not going to be enough to screw anything up here for the next week.
Yep, that makes sense. You guys seeing the spring pattern, the popping cork, voodoo shrimp, or?
That's it, dude. You hit the nail on the head right there. If you can get, I love the topwater fish and slick lure fish this time of year. But what you run into when you start doing that, and Patrick will tell you this, when you got 3 or 4 people on a boat, you don't need to be throwing plugs with 3 treble hooks in them.
Right.
It's bad
I'm
enough
scared.
with a single hook.
Yeah, I'm scared when one person has a treble hook plug on their line.
That's especially when that one person is Rutland, because he doesn't care where if you're in his way, it doesn't matter. He's throwing, and he throws kind of hard, so it's going to hurt when he hits you. But you start multiplying that by 2 or 3, buddy, you're talking about some trouble. So anyway, but it's fun to catch fish on top water, and you can do it this time of year, particularly when you get around mullet. Works great. But what's worked for us, or works for me right now, it's all popping corks. I'm bringing everything. I'll have 12 or 14 rods on the boat. But, if I have 14 rods, 10 of them are going to have popping corks, mostly with voodoo on them. And I had some bait today, but we literally never even opened up the live well today. We caught everything on artificial bait. And I think in my last, I'll have to look back, but I want to say in my last 8 trips, I think I've used a total of 2 shrimp. Even though I've been carrying them, it just hasn't been necessary because you've been able to stay on the go. The fish are biting, the water's clear, and that all really works well for artificial bait.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I believe it.
And the other thing, and Patrick will tell you this too, I'm sure, it never fails. You get a lot of the bait shops that have kept bait all winter long, and just about the time you really start to need bait, which we're getting into right now, it just evaporates. They just can't find it, So that's the other frustrating part. So you better have it figured out to where. Now I'd hate to go sheephead fishing with artificial bait, because you're in for a long day doing that. But as far as trout fishing goes, and even red fishing, you're going to bite just fine with artificial bait if you can't get live.
That's right. Unless you're Captain Patrick Garmison, he caught the state record sheephead on an artificial.
State record sheep
on an artificial.
On a gulp.
No way. Are you kidding me?
No.
I'm dead serious.
You're letting the cat out of the bag, dude. Good for you, man.
Yep. We have I've already notified Berkeley, so just to let them know that they are the pending state record bait choice. Well,
Nice.
Bobby, I was just looking at the weather for Saturday. A lot of our listeners are going to be Saturday anglers, and we've got a 40% chance of rain. And it looks like a southeast wind, possibly upwards of maybe, heck, it might be a 20-mile-an-hour wind, but it looks like about a 10 to 15 inland. In those type of conditions, how can our listeners get out there and whack them a few trout this Saturday?
Well, when you start getting any kind of south component in it, and there's fish even down at the lower end of the bay right now, my first thing, again, to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, my first thought when I start hearing that kind of wind, I start thinking about going down all the way down to the island, and fishing. You get on the inside of the island, Dolphin Island Bay area, even maybe possibly even down towards the west end, and you get protection from that south and southeast wind. Even on a big double-digit wind like that, you can go out there and catch fish. The places you want to avoid are the west side of Mobile Bay, the open water areas like the shoals and in Portersville and some of those kind of places. Those go really, really bad when you start talking about that kind of wind. So I'm supposed to fish on Saturday. That's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be probably working my way down towards the island, and if I have to, I'll stay up in the rivers or even get up in the creeks where if it gets bad enough and I just totally have to give up on the trout. With that kind of wind, you're going to talk about high water levels too. So that'll let you get back in some of those little bitty creeks sometimes and get back in there and catch some of those trip saver redfish, So that's probably what I'd do. That's probably what I'll be doing if that forecast holds true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, these forecasts change day to day, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there to where we could start thinking about the weekend.
Definitely.
And the good thing about it, at least with the southeast wind, it keeps a lot of that area. The water stays really clear down there. When it goes more like west or southwest, that's when you really start losing your water clarity, and which to me makes it that much tougher. So at least if it keeps that east in it, you're going to be able to find some decent water down at the lower end of the bay.
All right, Captain Bobby. Cool. We found a personalized Hey Cap question for you because I know you kind of like to nerd out on this stuff with speckled trout.
Man, yeah,
and that's a good thing.
And you know what? I've never heard it called nerded out, but I've heard say like I actually I was thinking more like I've been told that I tend to overthink things a little bit when it comes to trout fishing. I've heard that I theorize too much. I've never heard nerded out, but unfortunately I can't disagree with you because I do nerd out when it comes to this kind of stuff. I'm the kid where if there was a guy talking about the science of speckled trout, I'm the guy that's sitting in the front row in the center of the classroom with a pocket protector and glasses on it.
For sure. I like it. All right. Well, Pat Hoffman emailed us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com, and he will be the recipient of the Fairhope Rattle this week. Make sure you redeem that. Email us again, Pat. Pat Hoffman says, is there an ideal salinity level for specks on the Gulf Coast? I know that's kind of broad. I know this is a great topic for this time of year, so I'm just going to let you guys talk about it.
Well, as far as ideal goes, I guess you could start out, they have to have 5 parts per thousand just to live. So, you got to make sure you're above that. To put it in perspective, you're talking pretty much just milky fresh water, like rainwater there. They just can't live in that. They don't spawn in anything less than 15 parts per thousand. Give you an idea on that. That's kind of like typical summertime or late spring bay water. That's where you're seeing some, a little bit of foam in your wake. And just to give you another idea, like 35 parts per thousand is blue water. That's the stuff Bush and nip fish in. You know what I'm saying? So that'll kind of give you the different ranges. So 15 parts per thousand is what they won't spawn anything less than that. So it kind of depends on the time of the year. Like right now, you're going to want to be in that 15 to 20 parts per thousand salinity levels. That's where you're going to be around the fish that are in this spawning mode right now. I wish I had the way. You can get a hygrometer that'll actually read salinity, but my barometer for it is how much foam's in the wake of the boat, and so I look back a lot of times just to make sure I got foam in the wake. The other thing you can do, sometimes you can just ask the bait shops, they read it because they have to keep the bait alive.
True.
You can ask them what the salinity levels are. So, kind of a long answer question. It's not really an ideal salinity level. I would say, typically the fish you catch during the spring and the summer and the early part of the fall, you're fishing roughly about 20 parts per thousand. But when you start getting up in the Delta later in the winter, where you're dealing with a big mix of fresh and salt water, you might be fishing 10 parts per thousand, but those are post-spawn fish. They're not worried about spawning. That's the reason you can still catch those fish in those kind of salinity levels. So I don't know if I answered this question, but that's everything I know about salinity and trout in about 3 minutes.
That's much more than I know, so I appreciated that lesson for sure.
That's all good stuff, Bobby. And I'd have to say that, the difficult part, a guy like me who I do a lot of river fish, do a lot of like Mobile River, and I'll fish Theodore Canal. And there's a lot of times in the springtime of the year when the water will be totally fresh on top, and yet the fish are in spawn mode down possibly 10, 15, 20 feet deep, because the water temperature is right, the salinity is right, but you don't get to see that foam in the water. So anyway,
that's a great point too, and I'm glad you brought that up because, like I was talking about, I'm looking for stuff but deep water guys that are really good at deep water like you are, man, that's a good point there because there is a level of salinity down deep and it may look terrible on the top, but it could be perfect. Like you said, 10, 12, 15 feet down. If you're fishing a 20-foot water column, you might be actually having your bait down there in 20 parts per thousand salinity, so you can't give up on it just because it's muddy on the surface. Man, so that's a great point that you bring up there.
For sure. Thanks, Pat Hoffman, for that Hey Cap question, and we'll get you that Fairhope rattle. All right, Captain Bobby, we appreciate you being on and keep whacking them.
You are welcome, man. I appreciate y'all having me.
So let's move on down to Orange Beach, Alabama, and hear from Dusty Hayes. What you got going on with us this week, Dusty?
All right, what's up, guys? We've been catching a lot of fish off the beach, a lot of pompano too. I've seen almost everybody that I know, local guys and tourists and friends and people I've met, and Matthew and a bunch of other people catching pompano off the beach right now. Whether it's 1 or 10, some days I caught 16 on Friday. A lot of them are undersized, and then we've caught some. Some mornings there's just a few keepers, but there definitely are good numbers out there. The guys further to the west are catching some good sized pompano, like down Fort Morgan, and also catching sheepshead on some of the structure side down there, and redfish and black drum as well. And then in the Orange Beach area, we're catching a lot of mainly just pompano, but there has been the scraggler redfish or black drum, or and even some nice whiting. Whiting aren't really huge numbers, but there's always this time of year when the pompano running, there's always 1 or 2 kind of mixed in the crowd. And they're, great table fare and hard fighting. You can catch them on basically the same tackle that you can for pompano. But yeah, the pompano body's been good. We've been looking for incoming tides, which has been in the mornings for the past few weeks. Incoming tides in clear water. It doesn't have to be like very, very, very clear. There's a point to me where it's almost too clear. But that green color is really critical. That brown mud water from all the rain and stuff we've had recently. You can catch some in that, but not as much. It seems like they don't really like that lower salinity. They like that high salinity, clean Gulf water. And so that's really what I look for. You might have to look 2 or 3 beaches before you really find what you want. And it'll move through too, especially with the wind switching from north to south, to southwest to southeast. You'll have brown water, but an hour later it might be perfect, pretty green water. So
they still eating up the fish bites?
Yeah, fish bites has been doing real well. I'm a shrimp person, but as it gets into spring, starting now, the sand flea fish bites seems to be king pretty much from here till fall. And you can still catch them on shrimp. And everybody you talk to has different preferences. Like I have a buddy of mine I've been fishing with for years, and he fishes in Gulf Shores majority of the time, and he loves the lime green chartreuse colored fish bites and the shrimp flavor. That's his go-to. So, with the fish bites, the two and the color, a lot of it's just water clarity, and also experimenting, on what you like. There's really no one color that works. We use so many different colored floats and feeds, from purples to yellows to pinks and rainbow, and you name it. And like this morning, my buddy I was just telling you about, he was beside me fishing, and he had one rod using black floats that was getting smoked every 2 minutes, and no other rod out of 8 rods was even getting touched.
Interesting. Might be something to that.
Yeah. And I told him, I was like, I can't name anything off the top of my head that's black, but walk up and down the beach and look how many things you can find that are black, right there on the shoreline, little shells and stuff. So something they're eating is close to that color apparently. But experimenting is a huge part of spring. Nothing stays the same. It's day by day. You can have your stuff going on and you think you got it going, and then it'll swap on you the next day. So basically every day is a new clean slate, and you got to start at scratch. But there's a lot of fish out there. There's a lot of good size fish, especially coming from the east. Guys fishing further to the east been catching a lot of good fish. Me and Matthew went yesterday, and he got a real solid fish. And then our buddy that was out there beside us, he had 3 of them, all around 3 pounds. So real fat fish right now.
That's some big pompano right there. Hey,
yeah, there's a bunch of them coming through 18 to 20 inches in that area.
Dusty, I've got a question. I'm not a big beach fisherman, pompano fisherman, do occasionally, but run across over the years, there's pompano jigs, little dusters. Is that something that anybody uses? I mean, are y'all using those things at all? I hear a lot of these bottom rigs and stuff like that. Is that something worth even experimenting with?
Yeah, so with me, and this is just my personal experience, somebody else might tell you completely different. Like if I have an inshore charter and I'm on the boat and I'm fishing Perdido Pass on the rocks and stuff like that, I always have a pompano jig. Pretty much from January to May, I'll have a pompano jig on a rod, and they work great. It seems like on the beach, I've never caught a pompano on a pompano jig. I've caught flounder and redfish and Spanish mackerel and ladyfish and you name it. I've never actually caught a pompano on the beach on a jig. Caught tons off the jetties and stuff on pompano jigs. Now there are guys that walk the beach and catch them, just blind cast them for them. And I know a little further to the east, there's a lot of guys that sight fish for them. They'll walk and they'll see them flash and do that. And also too on the pier, it seems like the jig's really critical. You can go out there early season when they're coming through and not necessarily catching them on bait. There's guys catching them on jigs on the pier, and especially in the Navarre and even the Gulf State pier at times when the water's clear. It's not something that I necessarily, put on my arsenal. I use jigs a lot this time, almost all year, but I actually use yellowtail jigs. So down in the Keys, people fish the patch reefs and they use live shrimp and chum up the yellowtail snapper and all that stuff. And you can get a little yellowtail jig, and it's just like a weighted hook, basically. Like mine are, I think, an 1/8 ounce, and they're just a real heavy, stout hook, real short. And you can get different colors. They make pink and yellow and white. And I'll put a little piece of fish bites on there, and I use a real light, 8.5 foot steelhead rod with that little piece of fish bite. So sometimes even a little piece of shrimp, and I'll throw it out, 5 yards. It's not going to go very far because it weighs basically nothing. Throw it out 5 yards on a real calm day and just let it drift with the current and the waves. And you'll catch pompano and whiting and flounder and redfish. All the time on that. It's very, very deadly technique, especially in the fall. And it's also something I use sight fishing. We see a lot of, on the clear days, you'll see redfish and black drum and sheep's head just cruising up and down the beach. And, if you chunk a 2-drop rig out there in front of them with a 2-ounce sinker, you're just going to spook them off. Mm-hmm. So that's something that throws basically no noise when you throw it in front of them. You can lead them, 10, 15 feet. It'll sink right in front of their face, and they just can't resist it because it's very small. The whole thing's the size of a nickel maybe, and something very small, compact, natural looking. And they can't stand it. They love it.
Sweet. I know you do inshore charters over there too on that east side over there, Orange Beach area. One on inshore side over there.
The inshore's actually heated up pretty good starting last week. We was catching fish, but it was just inconsistent. But now it's picked up pretty good. There's still some sheep's head on the jetties at Perdido Pass. A lot of good size ones. And then also there's been the scraggler redfish and a lot of pompano out there as well. If you don't want to fish the jetties and fight all the crowds out there and all that stuff, you can go inshore. The trout starting to move out of the creeks and make their way out to the Gulf and in the bigger parts of the bay. Fishing, a lot of the stumps and stuff around some of the back bays and deeper docks have been good for trout, redfish, and sheep's head. When you get into, here in the next few weeks as that water temp rises, your trout start getting on the grass flats. And there's been a few fish on some of the flats already, but not a whole lot. I have seen some, though. And even some guys starting to dock light fish too and catching fish. So awesome. we've been heating up over here inshore, and the redfish bite's been good on a lot of the docks, especially the deep ones. If you can find one 8 to 12 foot of water, there's going to be fish on it for sure. So it's getting better day by day over here.
That seems to be the consensus all around, Captain Dusty, and I like to hear that, man. We like to get that tip from you each week. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by our local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercrafts? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Did you know Geico does even more than insure your valuable items? They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-AL. What you think for a tip this week, Captain Dusty?
Yeah, man. So I think my best tip I can give you for springtime this week, pompano fishing, especially early season before it just gets absolutely crazy, is just make sure you keep everything simple. I'm sure it's been touch base before, but when you're surf fishing, especially when you find that clear water, like I was talking about earlier, you don't want heavy tackle. I use real light rods depending on the surf days. If I'm a day like yesterday where we had huge waves, I was using 10-foot rods and 3 and 4 ounce sinkers, which you can do on rough days. But when you get calmer days like this morning, we're using 8 to 9-foot rods and 1 and 2 ounce sinkers, 4,000 size reel, 15 to 20 pound braid, just real light stuff. And then you can downsize your leader from 20 is about the heaviest I'll go pompano fishing. And if it gets really calm and clear, you can bump it all the way down to, I know guys that do 10 and 12. I usually go to 15 on my light side, 15-pound leader, smaller hooks, and that'll get you more bites. It's not going to be as so heavy duty sitting out there. It's not as much for them to see. The less tackle you have on that rig, the better. Smaller swivels, I prefer not to use a swivel at the bottom to connect my weight. I just use a loop knot. And smaller hooks, you can do smaller beads, smaller floats. Just real finesse, and you'll notice you'll get a lot more bites, especially on the tougher days. You can downsize and make the difference in the world. And another thing is experiment with fluorocarbon versus monofilament. If I'm fishing 4 rods, I'll do 2 of each. And, fluorocarbon is all fancy and supposed to be the best of the best and all that stuff. And there's times where it really does make a difference. It's like you can't catch fish on anything but fluorocarbon. But there's also times when that water's a little dingier. That monofilament floats. Unlike fluorocarbon will sink and lay on the bottom. That monofilament will float up a little bit and kind of give your rig a little more life in the surf. Mm-hmm. And it also has a stretch on there as well. So I always experiment. I go back and forth and try different colors, and just every day is a new thing. Same thing with going down the lighter leader, and whether it be mono or fluorocarbon, always try it out. And see, one might be doing better than the other.
Heck yeah, that's how you figure it out.
That's a good tip about the mono versus fluorocarbon.
Yeah, I like
it. A lot of people are always dead set that they're going to use fluorocarbon leader, but I mean, you just made a good point as to why there's a reason to experiment with both. So appreciate that tip there, buddy.
Sure.
A lot of people just really overlook monofilament. They think it's like you were saying, people are just dead set on fluorocarbon. And it works great at times, especially trout fishing sometimes, in clear water, live baits and stuff like that. But, monofilament will definitely get the job done a lot of times. If Chris Vetche can catch trout on 40-pound monofilament, anybody can catch fish on 20-pound monofilament.
That's right. All right, man. We appreciate the report. If people want to book a trip with you, how they get in touch with you?
You can call me at 678-897-0167.
All right, Captain Dusty. We appreciate it, man. Keep whacking, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dusty.
All right, buddy. See y'all.
All right, Captain Patrick. We have a special guest today. We have Mr. Rick Frederick with the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program. How you doing today, Mr. Rick?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing well, man. We've been talking about the nice weather. It makes me want to. I'm going to have to go for a boat ride this evening whenever we wrap this thing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's here. Spring is finally made it here.
That seems to be the consensus on the whole show today.
Finally.
That's right.
Beautiful weather we've had.
So you guys have something coming up here that we need some help with, correct?
Yeah, we've got an event coming up next weekend that we're looking for volunteers, and it's a coordinated effort between our program, the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program, and the state of Alabama's Marine Resources Division, and also NOAA, their Marine Debris Program as well, are the 3 organizations putting this event on. And it's for the derelict crab trap cleanup that we do usually about once a year, or really as needed.
Okay, so that's going to be on this Saturday?
It's actually next week. It's actually on Friday, April 19th, and Saturday, April the 20th.
Perfect. Okay.
And both days the event starts at 8:30. It's going to take place, the staging area is the Chocolata Bay boat ramp right there on the causeway next to Ralph and Taku's restaurant.
Right.
And we've got several opportunities for volunteers. The first day on Friday, we're looking for kayakers are going to be needed to go out and mark the derelict crab traps. And this all takes kind of place in the shallow flats up near the upper part of the bay, right across from the battleship. So that's what's needed on Friday. And then on Saturday will be the main cleanup day, where we'll need, smaller shallow draft vessels to go collect the traps and then deliver them back to the disposable site there at the boat ramp. So we need boat owners out to help us with that. And also there's opportunities for volunteers that maybe don't own a boat. You can help on shore by moving the traps from the boats into the dumpster And then sometimes some of the boat owners need a hand on, deck to help out as well. So there's kind of a lot of opportunity for different people.
Sure. Okay. So say I own a boat and I want to be involved. What's my next step? Just kind of walk me through what I would do if I owned a boat and I wanted to be involved.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
The main contact, if you do want to participate, we ask that you talk with there's a gentleman named Jason Herman, who's with the Alabama Marine Resources Division. And his phone number is 251-861-2882. Or you can also email him, and it's Jason and Herman is with 2 R's and 2 N's, HERRMANN at dcnr.alabama.gov. And Jason can get you signed up and ready to go. But again, it's right there at the Chocolate Bay boat ramp is where the volunteer meeting, where everybody will meet that morning.
If weather is an issue with getting out there and doing this, do you have a alternate date, and what would be the plan there? And then also, what's the importance of getting these traps out of the water?
Sure. Well, as far as an alternate date, I have not seen one announced yet. So as we get closer to it, there may be some information there. So the AlabamaOutdoor.com is a website you can go to for that information. We have had kind of tough weather the last couple of years, but sometimes the wind and the tides are not kind to us, but we've still been able to get out there and get what we can because, it's all right there, right near the causeway. So it's not, it's fairly easy to get to. So, and these traps, over time, they wear out and people leave them out there. And so, hey, they're an eyesore, but they also break up and the materials get in the water. And another problem we have is we don't want traps out there that are still catching fish and catching crabs and they're not being harvested. So, we just need to get these out of there when they've been out there. And, sometimes they've been out there for a year not being used. So, we just, we need to get those out of the water, and, other boats can run over them and those type things. So there's several reasons to get them out of there.
Certainly. Also, Mr. Rick, we appreciate you being on the show, and thanks for putting this together.
You bet.
And hopefully we'll get some volunteers.
Fantastic. We hope to see everybody out there next Saturday and Friday.
Yep. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Man, that was good stuff with Mr. Frederick there with the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program.
Yeah, if you guys can be a part of that, you may as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not out there fishing and you got a few minutes to where you can go down there and give them some support, man, that's a good thing for the area, keeping those crab traps out of the water that are going to be continuously killing other crabs and fish and stuff like that. So it's
anytime we can help clean up our resource here, I'm all about it for sure. Well, Good show, man. What'd you learn today? You learn anything in particular? Anything stick out to you?
So I had 2 things stick out to me, and one was I just have to concur with Angelo talking about being ready, having just one rod dedicated to, hey, pitching a bait at this particular, a cruiser fish, something, like a dolphin, like he said, or having that one rod, that one bait rigged up, ready to go for that blue marlin if it shows up. Man, not going to show up in Mobile Bay.
That's right.
But
That's right.
I can relate because in the summertime, if I have that one rod ready to go for like throwing a bait at a triple tail, if I come by one, or maybe a school of bull reds, if I've got that one rod or 2 rods ready to go, that kind of thing can really help elevate the success and the overall quality of a fishing trip.
Yeah, make your whole trip.
Yeah, I mean, it really can. But the one thing that I learned today that, is I've become really a fluorocarbon snob, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of folks are like that as well.
Yeah, so I have completely bought into the whole fluorocarbon being nearly invisible to the fish underwater. So I'm like dead set. Fluorocarbon is my leader material. But he brings up a good point as to why there's a reason to experiment with some monofilament, because the monofilament's going to float in the water and possibly give a different presentation to his bait, especially in a surf condition where it might be getting tossed around a little bit, whereas the fluorocarbon is heavier and it's going to get on the bottom and stay on the bottom. So
for sure,
I would have to say that was a good learning point for me this show.
I like that a lot too as well. I can also say, you have never seen a fire drill like a blue marlin coming up to the back of the boat and not having a bait ready or a rod ready for that.
Oh, I bet it's ugly.
I got it on video somewhere. One of the last trips that we went on, or that I went on with all my friends offshore, we were kite fishing about a 200-pound blue marlin. It was chasing a mahi probably about a foot long, and I thought it was going to tear off the back of the boat. That fish was lit up, son. He had his pecs all bowed up, and he was chasing that fish all up under the escape and all. And, of course, everybody's trying to video the fish, and I'm trying to find a bait. I think I ended up swimming in the live well trying to find a hardtail. It was a nightmare, but it was cool to see that fish. We actually ended up getting a hardtail on a hook, and I just found the first hook that I found. I hooked it, and I threw it over, and it just happened to be the one that the bird was on with my Islander, and so I had too much hardware, and it was a nightmare. But anyways, that's a story for another day. But
so the story is that you didn't land the fish?
We did not. It hit one time, took a little bit of the bait, and then spit it. It just had too much hardware on it. We just weren't ready. But I mean, we were kite fishing. We weren't ready. Angelo's tip would have been.
That's just frustrating for me to have to hear that.
It was tough. It was tough for sure.
So what else do we have going on, Butch? We have the Alabama rodeo coming up, right?
That's correct. Yeah, Joe and I are going to be there. The 6th annual Alabama Fishing Rodeo. It's May 31 through June 2nd. It's a ton of categories: blue crab, speckled trout, red snapper, swordfish. You guys check them out. Get your tickets at FloorBamaFishingRodeo.com.
But I tell you what, that Alabama rodeo, that's a pretty cool event. We've I think my wife and I placed in blue crab, or no, my son placed in blue crab and redfish. Anyway, it's been a couple of years since my schedule aligned for me to be able to fish that thing. But if I need to take a look at my calendar, see if I can fit that thing in, because it's definitely a fun event.
For sure. I'm looking forward to it. Joe and I are staying over there that week and bringing our wives and kind of making a little vacation of it. So we're excited.
Oh, listen at you, man.
Yep. Take a little break.
Ladies, man. So tell us, we had a giveaway going on Facebook. Tell me about that.
We did.
Who won it?
Mr. John Dixon was the winner of that giveaway. Make sure you email us, Mr. John Dixon at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. I'll get you that Dry Fit Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report shirt, a couple koozies, and some stickers. We appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys that shared and liked our stuff. Yeah.
We get a bunch of response out of that?
We did. It was good. Yep.
Good. Well, we appreciate everybody listening. And man, I get so much feedback from people just messaging me through Facebook or direct, just sending me emails or text message or whatever, just really appreciating this stuff. And I really appreciate y'all. It's a really big deal that I get to be involved in this, because it's, as much as I love to fish, I mean, it's almost as fun just to talk fishing as it is to be involved in fishing. Anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to our buddy Donley Weaver. He's from Southwest Pennsylvania. Gave me a call the other day to tell me how much he appreciated the show. Mr. Donley gets out once a year. Gets down to where did he say he goes once a year down to Florida. But he said it just the show in general, he loves listening to the show, and we appreciate you, sir.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate all of our listeners, and look forward to the next show, Butch.
Absolutely. You guys make sure you go over to iTunes and give us a rate and a review there, and that's going to wrap up this show. You guys head on over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR if you want us to email you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking, and we'll talk to you soon. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org. Also brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al.
And also A-Team Fishing Adventures. Check them out online at www.ateamfishing.com or contact them at 251-661-7696. And also, Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com. And also, KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
Also, Ugly Fishing Charters with Captain Patrick Armisen. You can check us out at uglyfishing.com or call us at 251-747-1554.